Kia ora, good morning everyone, Richard here, welcome back to the channel. I have recently reviewed the TTArtisan 28mm f5.6 lens for Leica M. While the optical performance of that lens is not something that I would call perfect, I do really enjoy shooting with that TTArtisan lens because of its compact size, the really beautiful design, and it also has a very affordable price. And now it's 7Artisans' turn to release their 28mm f5.6 lens also for the Leica M. It is also a very compact lens and the retail price is even slightly cheaper. So in this review, we are going to have a look at this new 7Artisans lens, and we will also do some comparison between these two 28mm f5.6 lens and see which one is the better lens. And a quick disclaimer before we start. The review sample that I'm using in this review was sent to me by 7Artisans. It is a very early pre-production sample. It doesn't even have a proper box yet. As usual, this is a completely independent review. 7Artisans wouldn't even get to watch this review until I have it published on YouTube. This new 7Artisans 28mm f5.6 is a fully mechanical manual focus lens that is designed for Leica M cameras. But of course, you can use it on pretty much any mirrorless cameras with a simple adapter. It is a really compact lens, look at the size. And while it has a full metal construction, the weight of this lens is only around 130 grams, so it's also pretty lightweight as well. The aperture ring is at the front and it has clicks, and it is 1 click per stop from f5.6 to f22. The manual focus ring is just behind the aperture ring, and just like a lot of the Leica M lenses, it also has a focus tab to help you control the focus easily and quickly. The focus ring is very smooth and the focus flow is around 100 degrees. Overall, the lens feels solid and the build quality is not bad at all. However, I feel the lens design is a bit uninspiring, especially after I have just recently reviewed the TTArtisan 28mm f5.6 lens, which is really beautiful and also feel a lot more premium. Having said that, there are a few things I think 7Artisans did a bit better, or at least I like it more when compared to the TTArtisan lens. First one is the lock on the focus tab. Just like the TTArtisan lens, the focus ring would also lock at infinity focus, but with the 7Artisans lens, you need to press the button, then push the focus ring to infinity, then the focus will lock at infinity. While with the TTArtisan lens, it will just lock automatically every time you move the focus ring to the infinity side. I like the 7Artisans design more as it gives me more control on when I want to lock the focus ring instead of locking it automatically for me every time. The second thing I like more is the lens hood. Actually, at first, I don't really like the lens hood for the 7Artisans lens because the lens hood doesn't have any lock mechanism. You just push it onto the lens and then it will just rely on friction to keep the lens hood on the lens. So initially, I just prefer the TTArtisan's lens hood as it looks more beautiful and also has a little screw there for you to lock the lens hood onto the lens. However, after spending the last week shooting with these two lenses side by side and keep swapping between these two lenses, I found the more simple design of the 7Artisans lens hood actually works better and it's just more practical. The lens hood just stays on the lens more securely. The TTArtisan lens hood actually feels a bit more fiddly instead. Since I do not currently own any Leica M camera, so I did this review using my Lumix S5 and using the 7Artisans M to L adapter. The quality of the adapter is pretty good overall. It's all made of metal with a nice titanium silverish color finish. The adapter also fits the camera and the lens pretty much perfectly. There is very minimal amount of play once you have everything mounted together. My only complaint is that the 7Artisan logo on the adapter is upside down once you mount it on the camera. Of course, it doesn't affect the performance or anything, but it just annoys me a little bit when I look at the camera. But apart from this nitpicking, it's a good solid adapter with a reasonable price. The minimum focus distance of this 7Artisans lens is 1 meter, which is pretty much identical to the TTArtisan 28mm f5.6 lens. Because of its 28mm focal length, which means the field of view is quite wide, it is not a lens that you would use for any kind of close-up photos because it just can't do close-up photos at all. This is my usual Lego test photo shot at the minimum focus distance. You can see how tiny my Lego minifigure is in this photo. Okay, now let's have a look at the image quality and start with the image sharpness. The image sharpness is excellent at f5.6, zooming 200%, and the center still looks very sharp with no chromatic aberration. Stop down to f8, the center sharpness is pretty much the same. Because of diffraction, when you stop down to f11, the center becomes slightly softer and would become more and more soft as you stop down the lens any further. And now let's have a look at the corner. At f5.6, the corner is slightly soft, but I can still read the letters quite easily. Stop down the lens would improve the corner sharpness, and the best corner sharpness is at f11, which is very acceptable sharpness. If I compare it with the TTArtisan lens, the center sharpness is pretty much the same. Both are excellent at f5.6 and f8. And for corner sharpness, the 7Artisans is slightly better at f5.6, but it's not really a big difference, and once you stop down both lenses a little bit, the difference is even smaller. Now, usually on this channel, when we look at the corner sharpness, the test photo will shot by focusing at the center of the image, and it is the same for this review. But I do notice with the 7Artisans lens, at f5.6, if I focus on the corner instead of center, the corner would become a bit sharper, especially at f5.6, which suggests there is a bit of field curvature with this lens. In terms of distortion, let's have a look at my usual brick wall test photo. When shooting at a distance of a few meters, distortion is reasonably well controlled, but I can see a small amount of barrel distortion near the edge of the photo. Nothing really serious, but it is a little bit more than the TTArtisan 28mm lens. These two distortion test photos were shot from the same position. You can see, even though they are both 28mm lens, the 7Artisans lens has a slightly tighter field of view compared to the TTArtisan lens. The 7Artisans lens has very noticeable vignetting at f5.6. When you stop down to f8, then vignetting becomes a lot less noticeable. Continue stop down the lens from f8 onwards would make minor improvement to vignetting. Comparing it with the TTArtisan lens, the 7Artisans has slightly better vignetting performance overall, as the vignetting effect is a bit smoother and also much improved once you stop down the lens a bit, while the TTArtisan lens still has some noticeable vignetting even when you stop down the lens to f22. If you use this lens for street photography, having a bit of vignetting probably doesn't matter, but if you want minimal vignetting, maybe because you want to use this lens for a bit of landscape photo, then the 7Artisans lens is surely the better choice. Chromatic aberration is very well controlled by this 7Artisans 28mm lens. I don't really see any noticeable color fringing at all when I check my test photo and some real-world photos. Even for some of the high contrast scenes, I see almost no color fringing, so that's really pretty good and even better than the TTArtisan lens. Now let's have a look at the lens flare performance. If you look at my side-by-side test with the TTArtisan 28mm lens, It's quite obvious the 7Artisans lens has better lens flare performance. There is less lens flare, less ghosting from the 7Artisans lens, and this is quite noticeable from the nighttime test footage. The only problem with the 7Artisans lens is that sometimes when there is a strong light source that is just outside the frame and in front of the camera, then you would start to see quite a bit of lens flare, and the contrast would also drop quite a bit as well. Unfortunately, the lens hood doesn't seem to make much difference, and you get similar amount of lens flare with and without using the lens hood. And when that happens, the lens flare is also not the most pleasant looking type as well. If you like having some nice sharp Sunstars in your photo, this 7Artisans 28mm lens is not really a good choice for you. Even when stopped down to the minimum aperture f22, there still isn't any sharp, well-defined Sunstars in the photo. The TTArtisan 28mm f5.6 lens is pretty much the same. Even at f22, you only get some pretty messy Sunstars. And I also see quite a lot more ghosting from the TTArtisan photo as well. While I definitely love lens that has great optical performance, I myself actually more enjoy shooting with lenses that are more compact, even if the optical performance may not be quite perfect. With the smaller and lighter camera gear, I just would carry them more often and use them more. And the thing is, most lenses these days, even they do not have perfect image quality, it is still pretty decent. And it is the same for this new 7Artisans 28mm f5.6 lens. In terms of image quality, there are a few areas that it could be improved, but if I'm just using it for street photography or as an everyday lens that I would carry with me all the time, I think the image quality is more than good enough. Compared it with the TTArtisan 28mm f5.6 lens, the 7Artisans deliver slightly better overall image quality. However, I do really wish the aesthetic design of this lens could be a bit better. I know some of you may comment and say, well, it's just a lens, who cares about how the lens looks? Well, I do, especially if it's something like a Leica M lens. I just love a beautiful lens. But anyway, this 7Artisans 28mm f5.6 is a decent lens with good practical design and solid image quality. And you know it's not a bad lens at all if the main complaint I have is about its aesthetic design.